Hey guys, Justin Conroy here, and today I want to talk about credit scores, including what they are, how they're calculated, how to improve them, and why it's important that you have a good one. If this is your first time here and you want to learn tips, tricks, and hacks related to personal finance, how to build wealth, and how to better manage your money, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you don't miss a thing. Alright, so let's go ahead and get into things. What is a credit score? So a credit score is a 3-digit number, usually ranging between 300 and 850, and it's supposed to tell lenders whether or not you would be a risky person to lend money to. A low score to them would indicate that you are the type of person that probably isn't going to pay your bills, and therefore they would probably lose money on. And a high score tells them that you are probably a person who would actually pay your bills and they would most likely make money off of you. Most credit reporting agencies look at a score below 580 as being poor, between 580 and 669 to be fair, between 670 and 739 to be good, 740 to 799 to be very good, and anything above 800 is considered to be exceptional. So it's a good way for them to look at you and determine whether or not they should even do business with you. Now, there are 3 credit reporting agencies. There's Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian. Now, they all calculate their credit scores slightly differently, but they're usually pretty close when you look at the results. So it's not really uncommon for a lender to use one versus the other. The most likely case that a lender is actually going to pull all 3 is when you're making a very large purchase, such as a house. So what actually goes into your credit score calculation? Well, there are 5 things we need to talk about. First one is on-time payment history, and this is 35% of your credit score. Basically, this is just a measure of whether or not you pay your bills on time. And the unfortunate part of this one is that if you had a mishap in the past, it's unfortunately probably going to be on your credit report for quite a while. It's not uncommon for these things to last between 7 and 10 years on your credit report and can negatively affect your score for a long time. So don't miss payments. Whatever you do, don't miss payments. Even if you only pay the minimum amount on, let's say, a credit card bill, that is better than not paying at all. Now, the good thing here is that if you have one little slip up, if you have a little mistake, you accidentally forgot to pay your bill and then you pay it the next day, it's most likely not going to affect your credit score. Most companies will not even report a late payment to the credit reporting agencies until it's more than 30 days overdue. So there is some leeway. It's not a hard and fast rule, but don't panic if you accidentally miss by 1 or 2 days. Now, the second part of the credit score calculation is what's known as credit utilization. Now, this is just very simply the ratio between the amount of credit that you're using versus the amount of credit that you have available, i.e. your credit line. And it's the percentage that matters, not the total dollar value. So for example, if you borrowed $1,000, but you had a $100,000 credit line, that's a 1% utilization, and that's really not that bad. That's actually a very good credit utilization. On the contrary though, if you had $1,000 borrowed, but you only had a $2,000 credit line, that means your credit utilization would be 50%, and that's a very bad utilization and would definitely hurt your credit score. Now, the third thing that goes into your credit score calculation is the length of your credit history. And this is just very simply the age of your longest accounts. It is important to note, however, that it is the average age of your accounts, not necessarily the age of your longest account. So just keep that distinction in mind. The fourth thing that goes into your credit score calculation is the numbers of different types of credit that you're using. So basically, a lender believes that it's better for you to have different types because that shows them that you are good at managing different types of debts. So that includes things like credit card payments, installment loans, car payments, maybe a mortgage. Basically just saying that it's better to have different types and not only have one type of debt. Finally, the fifth thing that goes into your credit score is what's known as the total number of hard inquiries, or the total count of credit-seeking activities. And basically this is just a count of the number of times that you seek some sort of credit line. And the reason that this is important is because lenders believe that, if you go out and suddenly start asking for a bunch of credit, and you weren't really doing that before, it's a signal to them that something may be wrong in your life and that you're desperate for money, and that basically means that you are a risky patron at that point. So as a quick recap, we've got on-time payment history at 35%, credit utilization at 30%, length of credit history at 15%, different types of credit lines at 10%, and total number of hard inquiries at 10%. So now that we understand everything that goes into the credit score, now we can actually talk about how to start improving our credit score. So from the top, on-time payment history, 35% of your credit score. This is an easy one. All you have to do is pay your bills on time. Like I said, easy enough. Pay your bills on time. Whatever you do, pay your bills on time. Don't let these things go delinquent, because if they go delinquent, this hits your credit score, and this hurts it more than anything else. It's 35% of the score, and it's most likely going to stay on your credit report for up to 7 to 10 years. So whatever you do, don't let this happen. And look, if you've already got a ding on your credit score because you missed a payment, let's say a couple of years ago, and you've been really good ever since, the best course of action, and the only course of action that I know of, is to just call your lender and ask them to remove it. Sometimes you can get a really nice person who will be understanding of your situation, and they'll just remove it. But it's honestly the only course of action that I know to take. If they're not nice and they won't work with you, and you call them and you ask nicely, please remove it, they won't do it, there's not really much you can do except just wait it out. And it may take 7 to 10 years. Now, like I said previously, if you screw up, if you're really good about paying your bills on time normally, and you just happen to accidentally not pay your bill for a day or two, you're most likely going to be okay. Because like I said earlier, delinquent payments usually aren't reported to the credit agencies for up to 30 days. Again, it's not a hard and fast rule. You may be working with some jerk company that just reports immediately, but that's usually not the case. So if you do miss a payment by a day or two, just pay it as fast as you can. They'll probably let you off the hook. But again, let's not get ourselves into the situation in the first place. Just pay your bills on time. Even if you have to pay the minimum payment on a credit card, do it. Pay your bills on time, because it's totally worth it to have a good credit score. Second thing on the list is credit utilization, which is 30% of your score. How can we modify our credit utilization to increase our credit score? Well, remember, credit utilization is just the ratio of how much credit we're using versus how much credit we have available. So the two ways of doing that are to decrease the amount of credit that you're using by not keeping balances on your credit card, paying them off in full every month, etc., etc. Or we can increase our credit limit. There's a couple of ways to increase our credit limit or our credit lines. First thing you can do is call your current credit card companies every 6 to 12 months and just simply ask them very nicely for a credit limit increase. Most oftentimes they will do it because you're a good customer and a good patron, and you pay your bills on time and you have a good credit score, so they'll increase your limit. It's something I do very often. The other thing you can do, believe it or not, it may sound a little bit counterintuitive, but get more credit cards. You can apply for a few more credit cards with large limits, and that will automatically increase the denominator of that equation and give you a better credit utilization value. Now, you want to keep this below 10% to have the best score. Now, it's worth mentioning, if you're a young person, if you're about to turn 18, or maybe you just turned 18, or even if you're 20 and you haven't done this yet, start building your credit now. Trust me, your 30-year-old self will thank you once you get there, because having a good credit score by the time you're ready to buy a house can mean the difference of tens of thousands of dollars in interest over 30 years. Best thing you can do is to go get yourself a credit card. Just be very, very, very careful with that credit card, because it can get you into a lot of trouble. Check out my video on credit cards and minimum payments here if you don't believe me. I cover all those topics in that video. Just be very careful. Get the credit card, use it a little bit, pay it off every month, don't pay any interest. Your 30-year-old self will thank you. Third thing on the list is length of credit history. Again, this is 15% of your credit score. If you're young, unfortunately, there's not really too much you can do here. You do need to just sort of wait this out, get an account, keep the account, and wait it out. Patience is a virtue. Your score will eventually get better just as you age and as you keep those accounts. If you're older and you have lots of accounts and you're considering closing some of the old ones because you don't use them anymore, don't. Because these accounts are actually helping your credit score. The average length of your credit history is everything. So if you have a really old account on there that's, let's say, 10 or 15, 20 years old, and most of your other accounts are new, they're new credit cards that you got really excited about and got recently, and now you don't like your old credit card that you got, 20 years ago, don't cancel the thing. Just keep it, because it's helping your credit score and it's helping your credit score be better. I should mention also that if you're young, it's best to start building your credit now. Your older self will thank you later, trust me. So if you're 18, or if you just turned 18, you're about to turn 18, go get a credit card as soon as you can. And just don't use it very much. Pay it off in full every month. Don't pay any interest. It will help you in your future, and it will help you save money in your future. And the fourth variable that was part of that credit score calculation is the different types of credit lines being used. Remember, these are things like credit cards, installment loans, car notes, mortgages, etc. Now, I'm of the opinion this is only 10% of your credit score, and this just sort of naturally happens over time. I'm definitely not going to sit here and tell you that you should go get a car loan just to have a different type of credit in your credit report to increase your credit score. That's completely counterintuitive and not productive, and honestly just a bad idea. If you need to go get a car and you need to borrow the money to get the car, then so be it, and that helps the score a little bit. But typically myself, I avoid car loans. I mean, I do have a mortgage, but again, these things just sort of naturally happen over time. It's only 10% of your score. I wouldn't worry about it too much. And, by the way, if you're worried about it, it's only 10%. It really doesn't affect things too much. I ignore it completely. I've got a more than 800 credit score right now. I'll put it on the screen. Fifth and final variable that we can manipulate with our credit score calculation is the total number of hard inquiries. Again, this is only 10% of your credit score, so you do have a little bit of leeway on how much you can really focus on it. There's obviously higher value variables as part of this calculation we can worry about, but it is something to pay attention to. Total number of hard inquiries is a tough one though, because in order to increase our credit score using more credit cards, we're going to have a couple of hard inquiries. And the real trick here is just to not do this too often. Don't think that you're gonna, watch this video, do a couple of things, get a couple of credit cards, reduce your current balance, and do all this, and have immediately an 800 credit score. It doesn't work like that. This is a journey, not a destination. We get there over time. We get there with patience. So I would just recommend, as you do this, as you start improving your credit score over the next few years, you just don't go crazy with applying for credit cards and applying for car loans and applying for all this stuff, because it's going to hit your credit score with hard inquiries, and we do want that number to be a minimum. Okay, so just do this over time and don't do it all at once, because it will hurt you. Now, total hard inquiries do stay on your credit report for about 2 years, so it's not really the end of the world, but it is something that we have to at least pay attention to and be aware of. So in this video so far, we've talked about what a credit score is, what goes into the calculation, and how to improve your credit score. But why? Why does this matter? Why is your credit score so important? Well, let me explain. Some of the largest purchases that you're going to make in your life are going to be purchases that you're not going to be able to afford with cash, and you are going to have to borrow the money, okay? And this is why it's important to have a good credit score, because at its core, a credit score tells a lender whether or not you're a good person to lend money to and you will pay your bills on time, or you're a bad person to do that for and you're not going to pay your bills on time. And lenders will typically give those with good credit scores better interest rates. And this is really important. Honestly, this is the most important thing. Let me jump over to my computer and do a couple of calculations for you. So I've jumped over here to calculatestuff.com to look at their amortization calculator. And let's just plug in a basic example to see what things look like. Let's assume we want to buy a $250,000 home, and we've got a good enough credit score to get us the loan, but not to get us a good interest rate. So we're going to have a 5% interest rate over 30 years. If we look at that, that means we're going to be paying $233,000 in interest over 30 years, on top of the $250,000 that we're going to pay for that home. That's a lot of money. Okay? Now if we look over here on the right, same numbers, except in this case, we're going to assume that we have a really good credit score, and actually we're going to drop this down to 4%. Okay, so we have a good credit score. The lender is going to give us the money, and he's also going to give us a better rate. Okay, and it's not uncommon to see anywhere between 0.5% and 1.5% difference between good credit scores and bad credit scores. So let's just talk about a 1% difference here in the interest rate. That means we're going to be paying $179,000, almost $180,000 in total interest over the 30 years, as compared to having a bad credit score, which was right over $233,000. So that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. That's tens of thousands of dollars in interest that we are paying extra just because we have a bad credit score. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas for future videos, please leave me a note down in the comment section. I do read all of them. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell before you leave. Don't forget to follow me on Facebook and Instagram. And as always, thank you for your time and your support. Have a good one.